Okay, ready for lesson number 66 in Algebra 1, and this is called Simplification of Radical Expressions and Square Roots of Very Large Numbers. Alright, we did this a little bit in one of the previous lessons where we were given something like the square root of 18, and I told you that you had a couple options there. You could find two numbers multiplied together that give you 18, that you could take the square root of one of them. So I can take the square root of that. So when I take the square root of that, it comes out of the radical sign, the 2 stays in. The other option was to write it as its prime factors, 3 times 3 times 2. And then we have got a couple here. They go out of the house. Whenever there's a couple, they can leave the house. And they leave as one couple, a couple of 3. And whatever is not a couple has to stay in. So you get the same answer. Alright, well, there's a couple reasons why we do this simplification. One is because we always want to simplify things, and the other, it helps us when we want to combine it with other radicals. So, for example, when we have the square root of 18, and we want to add the square root of 8. Remember what I had said, that if you have different indexes and different radicands, you can't combine those. My indexes are both 2, but my radicand, one is an 18, one is an 8. So by simplifying each of these, hopefully I can get it to where the radicands are the same. So we had just done the square root of 18 and came up with the square root of 3 times the square root of 2, right? And 8 then can change to 2 times 2 times 2. There's a couple there. We can pull the couple out, and we get 2 square root of 2. So now my index and radicands are the same, and now I can add. So remember, when you add, you just add these numbers, and you leave the square root of 2 alone, and there's your answer. So that is the primary benefit of being able to simplify your radicals, is so that you can combine them with other radicals that you wouldn't be able to do that with otherwise. Okay, so let's keep going. 8 square root of 27 minus 3 square root of 75. So yeah, you have to look at each one of these separate. So I look at square root of 27. We'll just kind of leave the 8 there. And square root of 27 would be 9 times 3. Or if you wanted to do 3 times 3 times 3 and bring out the couple, you can. But square root of 9 is 3. And a 3. So what do we do with that? Well, there's always a multiplication sign between the two. So this one is going to be multiplied by whatever you pull out. And that gives us a 24 square root of 3. Okay, let's look at this one. We've got a 3 and two numbers multiplied together that give you 75, that one of them you can take the square root of, that one right there. So we have 3 times 5, that 5 comes out, we have that. So we have 15 square root of 3. Alright, so notice what we've got here. We have a square root of 3 and a square root of 3 here, so we can combine those. So 24 minus 15 is 9, square root of 3, and we are done. Okay, let's do one more practice one, and then you should be able to be good on your own doing these. This one is the square root of 27 minus 3 square root of 18 minus 6 square root of 45. Square root of 7. Okay, square root of 18. Square root of 45. So notice what I did there. When I pulled things out, I made sure that I could have the square root of one of those terms that I'm multiplying. Alright, so that gives me 3 square root of 3, square root of 9 is 3, 3 times square root of 9 is 3, minus 6 times square root of 9 is 3. Alright, so let's combine. Alright, now we can start simplifying. So we have to look what happened. None of these numbers are the same. That means I can't combine any of these. That means I am done with that answer right there. Alright, so next part of this lesson, this won't be very long, has to do with square roots of stinking large numbers. So at this point, we've been doing things like square root of 50, which isn't too large, and that gives me 25 times 2. Square root of 25 is 5, and leaves me with a number like that. Alright, what if I'm looking at the square root of 50,000? What you're going to do is you're going to count the zeros. If you have an even number of zeros, then you're going to write this as 5 and times, and then a 1 with that many zeros, that even number of zeros there. 5 times 10,000 gives you 50,000. Alright, so now, and the reason I say an even number of zeros is if you remember how I said that, like up here, find two numbers multiplied together where one of them you can take the square root of. It's the same rule. Find two numbers multiplied together where one of them you can take the square root of. You can take the square root of any number like 100, 1,000, 10,000, a million, all those kind of numbers. If the number of zeros is even, you can take the square root. If this were 100,000 and it had an odd number of zeros, you couldn't take the square root of that. So that's the way you can tell if you can take the square root of one of these, is if there's an even number of zeros. Okay, so there is. So the square root of 10,000 is 100. So we pull the 100 out and we're left with the 5 in there. So there's the answer. Alright, let's look at 500,000. Notice there is an odd number of zeros in there. So we have to make it even. Easy to do. So right there is an even number of zeros. So we take 50 times 10,000. So all we did was made a square around an even number, the most even number of zeros I can go, and then take that number, 50, put it there, and this number, and put a 1 in front of it, put it there, and now I can do 10,000, which, like I said in the last one, is 100. 100 square root of 50. Alright, now, thing is, I'm not done simplifying because 50 can be reduced to 25 times 2, or 100 times, take the 5 out, square root of 2 equals 500 square root of 2. So that is the answer for that one up there. Okay, let's do one or two more just to kind of get you a feel for this. It's not really hard, but again, anything new is going to take a little bit of time. Square root of 40 million. Okay, so we're going to count our zeros, and there's 7, so I'm going to multiply it by that, or pull out 6, put a 1, and then my 6 zeros. Okay. 40 times 1 million. I can take the square root of that. Square root of that is 1,000. And then I'm going to see if I can simplify that. Square root of 40 would be 4 times 10. Again, I was looking for a number, or two numbers multiplied together give me 40, that one of them I could take the square root of. So 4 is the one that is the only one that I can do that of. Okay, so that gives me 1,000 times 2, square root of 10, or that for an answer. Okay, let's do one more. Okay, there I have 8 zeros, so that's good. So I can go square root of 7 times 1 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, 7 times 100 million. I can take the square root of 100 million and get 10,000. And I can't do anything with the square root of 7, so I'm done. Okay. I think that is probably it. Yeah, that is it for this lesson. So that's lesson number 66.